This is the Grow Your Clinic podcast from Clinic Mastery. We help progressive health professionals to lead inspired teams, transform client experiences, and build clinics for good. Now, it's time to grow your clinic.
Welcome back to another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast. My name is Jack O'Brien, your host, and we are well underway for 2020. We have a number of episodes in the bag, and today we have another Clinic Mastery Business Academy member story or member case study, and I'm super excited. I've been working closely with this gentleman for a couple of years now, and it's been incredible to watch his clinic journey, and you will be super inspired to hear from the one, the only, Dominic Sanó from Walk On Podiatry. Dom, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good, thanks, Jack. Thanks for a very humbling introduction there. I hope I get to inspire some people.
Yeah, awesome, mate. No, your journey is remarkable, and I think clinic owners will really resonate with, Walk On and your journey as a business owner. I'm going to throw it out there right at the start, listeners. If you are looking to get in touch with Dom or check out Walk On Podiatry, you can do that. Dom is super active on LinkedIn. So if you head over and go to linkedin.com/in/Dominic-Sanó, S-A-N-O, you can check that out perhaps while you're listening to this episode. Maybe you're going for a walk or at the gym, perhaps in the car. All right, Dom, before we get into your story as a business owner, as usual, we're going to go for the top 4 icebreaker questions. Are you ready, mate?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Righto. What are you reading right now?
Yeah, look, good one. I actually don't do a hell of a lot of reading these days. I try to use my time at home with my family. Instead, I use Audible a bit. So I try not to waste the time to and from work, that sort of thing. It's a good 30-odd minutes back and from work. So at the moment, I've just finished listening to Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and I've found that to be really good. Focused a lot on internal and external distractions, how to improve your life and focus when at work, but also improve your personal relationships. So that was a really good one, and I'm just about to start Deep Work by Cal Newport. So I think my big focus this year is trying to improve my focus.
They're both ripper books. They're definitely great on the themes. Tell me, what's your preferred playback speed on Audible?
Look, at least 1.5. Any faster than that, and they sound like chipmunks, and you kind of don't pick up everything. So 1.5, sometimes, depending on the reader, 1.25.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I like a book at 1.5 on Audible, or a podcast at 2.5. I just find it's different. But I've tried listening to myself at 2.5, and good luck. All right, we'll keep rolling. Number 2, who inspires you?
Look, I've always found it hard to answer because I think I've always had a number of sources of inspiration. I mean, I think we've all got some of those stereotypical sources of inspiration, your Richard Bransons, Elon Musk, Gary Vee, that sort of thing. But I think my biggest source has probably been my family, both past and present. My grandparents were the big one. We lived with my grandparents when I was a kid, and they were a very early source of inspiration. Migrating to Australia in the 50s with all their belongings in a suitcase, traveling to another country, not speaking a word of the language, would have been incredibly tough. And to have found work, raise a family, build a life for themselves, and then obviously for us, just incredibly grateful for the opportunity that I have because of their sacrifices. And that inspires me to work my backside off so I don't waste the opportunity they gave me, and obviously do that for my family as well. And my kids are probably another massive source of inspiration. Their amazing thirst for knowledge, their creativity, just the fact that they're so carefree inspires me, to push to sort of greater heights. So I'd say my family, mate.
Speaking of kids, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Maybe like a lot of typical young boys at the time, like a fighter pilot was a big one, maybe an airline pilot eventually, that kind of thing. And that was really young, like really, really early on. And then by the time I got to about 6 or 7, we had a couple of family experiences with a physio, with some other health professionals. And I learnt around that time that I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something in health. I didn't know what. I think everyone wants to be a physio early on because they don't know what other options are out there. But for me, it was something in health. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to try and improve the lives of others if I could, based on some of those experiences that we had at that sort of 6, 7 years old sort of mark.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. Right from day dot. Yeah. And fourthly, what's a motto that you try and live by?
For me, again, and it kind of circles back to my inspirations. It's sort of family first, I think, is the big one. Like everything I do, I try to do for my family, whether it's to spend time with them or, even if I'm at work, it's because I'm trying to do something for them.
Yeah.
So family first is the big one, mate. Being European, I think family and having your family around you is really important.
Love it. I've actually got a sticker on my desk here at work from Harvey Penne, one of our CM mastery partners. Family, your most important business. And it's so true, right? We do business because of our family and for our family. And that really resonates. I love it.
Yeah. Okay,
so as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, you're passionate and interested in getting health and helping people, through to now being a co-owner of Walk On Podiatrist. Fill us in on the steps. Was it straight from school to uni? How did you come across podiatry instead of physio?
Yeah.
What was that progression like?
Yeah, look, around that age, I guess the first thing was that I had an ankle sprain injury, a pretty severe one, when I was about 7 years old, and went through a little bit of rehab with a physio, and I found that really fascinating, and how that particular person helped me through that injury. And then so that kind of was my first taste of allied health and being a health professional. And then my sister, a year or two later, had to see a podiatrist, someone that we knew through a family member, and they helped her with a few issues she was having, being a little bit pigeon-toed and toe walking. There was a few problems that she had. And again, I found that really interesting as to how, something different. I'd never heard of podiatry, never seen podiatry. And at that point, it was sort of on my radar. Now, I never, at that stage, I never knew that I wanted to become a podiatrist, but, sort of went through high school, was working quite well. And I got the opportunity to do some work experience with a podiatrist at about 15 years old. So the same podiatrist that saw my sister. Okay. And at 15 years old, so I did a little bit of clinical work with him, and I sort of thought that was, again, really interesting. He was sort of specialising in, biomechanics and sports injuries, orthotic manufacturing. He, at the time, was doing quite a lot of orthotic manufacturing himself, just from his garage. That kind of gave me a little bit of a taste as to what you might experience as a podiatrist. So that sort of put it on the radar for me. At the same sort of time, I was actually working in a pharmacy and delivering medicine. I was the local pharmacy delivery boy, and so
drug dealer on the streets
for old people. So yeah, and that was another thing that I was sort of like, this is kind of interesting, but I didn't know whether I wanted to be locked up in a shop, for the next 40 years, sort of thing. I really enjoyed the interaction that podiatrist had with his patients and helped them through a journey through their problem. So I got to 18. I had to make some decisions about what kind of courses I was going to apply for, and put my name down for a couple. Podiatry was right up the top there, and I thought, look, take your place, start the course, and if you enjoy it, stick with it. And I actually took a year off once I took my place, deferred it, took a year off, and I went back to work for this just for another 12 months. So by this stage, his little backyard lab had turned into probably one of the biggest labs in Victoria, and sort of pushing for growth in the country. And I worked with him for a good 12 months, and again, got to do quite a bit of hands-on biomechanical sort of sporting injury assessments. We worked a lot with the Navy, and consequently, I've been really fortunate to inherit that gig now. But that sort of, again, kind of cemented that I can see myself doing this going forward. Yeah, started my course in 2004 and went through, and finally graduated and took my first job as a podiatrist.
And was that private practice, mate, or in public health? Or?
Yeah, look, it was. I think like most podiatrists, I had this great idea that I was gonna work a little bit in public and a little bit privately, and
probably with an AFL footy team, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was that was the key. Carlton, if possible. No, look, so that was what I really wanted to do. A couple of days here, a couple of days there, and very quickly I learned that it's really hard to get a public health gig. There's not too many of them around in podiatry, especially the kind of role that I was looking for. I wanted one of the big hospitals, and preferably something that wasn't, an hour's drive away.
Sure.
The position I applied for ended up being an internal position. So, if there was another, they didn't take a grad that year, but I think now I look back and I'm really happy that I did take that jump straight into private practice, and it gave me that opportunity to get to where I am today.
Mm. And is there a particular area of podiatry that you love seeing? I know you work a bit with defence, but what's your wheelhouse? What's your bread and butter?
Yeah, look, I do enjoy injury management and biomech type injuries. I think that side of podiatry is what I really enjoy, because you can help people through their problem. Having said that, there's a number of patients that we see as podiatrists that can't do the things that they used to be able to. They can't cut their nails, they can't look after their own feet, and that's also pretty rewarding, helping someone do something that they can't do. The compliments you get and the thanks that you get when you've helped someone do that, it's really rewarding. But for me, it's definitely the sporting aspect of podiatry that I enjoy. But overall, I think it's just having the opportunity to communicate with patients and chat with patients and help them through a journey is what I really like.
It's unreal, mate. And so then tell us about your journey towards being a business owner. There's a lot of themes here around helping people, but you haven't really touched on an entrepreneurial spirit or anything. How do you end up now being a co-owner of a multi-site podiatry clinic?
It's not that I fell into it. It was something that I knew I always wanted to do, but I think I fell into it a lot earlier than what I was hoping. I always planned that one day I might start my own business or something like that. And whether that was because Dad used to say, that's what you should do. Don't work for someone, work for yourself, sort of thing.
Yeah.
He was a business owner. He was a builder and worked for himself, and that always worked pretty well for him. So, look, I think after the first couple of years of working as a podiatrist, I was just trying to become, the best clinician that I could be, and really hone in on my skills. And I kind of took a backward step before we went into actually business ownership. Like, my wife and I decided that we didn't want to travel at 65 with a walker or walking stick and see the world. We wanted to try and get out there and do it early. And so we took 12 months off. We both quit our jobs and took 12 months off to travel the world. And that was definitely one of the best experiences that we had. But as we kind of got a little bit homesick, I kind of started ringing around and seeing if there was an opportunity to find some work back in Australia. And we came back. I was really fortunate enough to get my old job back. And then from there, there'd been a number of changes in the business. And although I had thought that, one day I would start my own, the opportunity to potentially buy into Walk On Podiatry came around. And the changes that had happened from the time that I'd been away to coming back to working within the business were really positive ones. We're talking about things that a lot of Clinic Mastery Business Academy members are doing now, but we were doing some of these things early on as well. Team mentoring, getting your team together routinely to have, whether it be monthly catch up, quarter cuddles, whatever we call them. And I could see that this was kind of growing a bit of a sense of culture that kind of lacked before I went away, and I sort of felt this was a business I wanted to be a part of. On top of that, I think starting something from absolute scratch is always difficult. So coming into something that already existed, and I kind of had some really good faith in, I thought this could be for me. And so the opportunity came about a year to a year and a half after coming back from Europe. And we jumped into it wholeheartedly, and I've kind of never looked back.
Yeah, nice. So what is it that you love about being a business owner now?
The big thing for me is that, like I said before, I always wanted to help people. And someone once said to me that there's a limit to sort of what you can achieve on your own. So as a practitioner, you might see 15 patients a day, whatever it is. So at the end of your week, that's the most amount of people that you can see and help. Being a business owner, if that can help me empower, we've got now 13 podiatrists. If I can help empower some of these other podiatrists to see 15 patients a day and help 15 patients a day, then all of a sudden I've gone from being able to help 70 odd to 80 odd people, in a week, to multiply that by 13. And that's the big thing for me. Is we've been in business to help people, and I've been able to grow that through my team.
Unreal. I'm sure that sounds quite aspirational for a lot of people. If only I could have a team that helped 70 people each a week, we'd make a massive impact. I think you have, and people will probably pick up in your tone, you've got a bit of a natural bent towards leadership. But how did you develop the skills to be a business owner? You don't just, buy into a clinic and all of a sudden you're a great leader.
Yeah.
How have you become, the leader that you are today?
Yeah, good question. I think there are a few people that have those born leadership skills, and I am one of them. No,
I think you are, mate. But yeah, continue.
I'm only kidding. When I came back and bought into the business, we had been working with some business mentors and some business coaches and things like that, and they used to run a number of sessions, and they would all be different. So there'd be sessions on leadership, there'd be sessions on marketing, there'd be sessions on mentoring, there'd be sessions on finance type stuff. And so we immersed ourselves in the first 2 years of me coming on board into every single session they offered to try and improve our knowledge on things that you didn't learn at uni. No one teaches you how to look at a profit and loss statement, or no one teaches you how to market to other people, or how to network. That was a big thing as well.
Right.
So that kind of gave me my first taste. And then obviously, looking at and reading a number of books to try and help improve my knowledge on running a business and being an entrepreneur. They're the things that really helped me. And we got to a stage probably about 4 or 5 years ago where I felt, a bit less than that, probably about 3 years ago, that we got to a stage where we were moving in the right direction. Things were working really well. But from a mentorship point of view, we felt that maybe we needed to look for someone that was a bit more industry specific. And that's when we came across Clinic Mastery and you guys. And you guys have helped us hone in on that last sort of 10 or 15% that we just wanted to refine. We kind of wanted to master what we do. And so you guys have really helped us take our clinical side of things up a level. So we had a really good knowledge of business, and even mentoring our team was working really well. But the big area that you guys really helped us exceed in was our client experience. That was something that we weren't really sure how we go about improving. And so things like management plans and patient communication and clinic apps and sort of getting back in touch with people, reactivating patients that might drop off, that sort of thing. And the education that we're putting out there for our patients, that was something that really helped us move up a level from a clinical point of view.
That's awesome. If I can weave those two together, so let's go leadership and some of those client experience things. We talk all the time on the Grow Your Clinic podcast about marketing and clinic apps and all of those types of things. How have you been able to lead your team through those changes?
Yeah, that's a challenge, I think, for any business owner. You come in with these cracking ideas that you thought of at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and you walk in Monday morning and you go, hey, I'd love to do this. And
we're going to do management plans and add another 5 minutes to your consult. Right.
Absolutely. And all of a sudden you get pushback. So we learned a long time ago that that's not the way to do it. You kind of need to set some expectations, or again, include your team in some of these decisions that you're making. So when it came to management plans, we sat down as a group and sort of, we see that there's a bit of a hole in what we're doing here. We've got some patients that aren't coming back for their appointments. Is it because they're not understanding what we're doing or what we're educating them on? So there was a number of areas that we thought we really need to improve. So, and this was around the time that I heard Brad Beer speak, and he just revamped his entire clinic. So for those of you who don't know, Brad Beer is a pogo physio in Queensland.
Correct. Yeah, Gold Coast.
Yeah. So he just revamped his whole philosophy on how they're going to look at their patients. And we were doing the same thing at the same time. And so it was really warming to know that someone else was thinking, we can't continue down this path. And one of the things he was putting a lot of focus on was patient outcome. Did that person achieve the goal that they set when they first came for? Yeah. Right. It doesn't have to be, that they had a sore foot and you help them get through it. It can be that they want to play with their grandkids and they can't run around after them and that sort of thing. And so it was that sort of made us sit down with our team and go, how do we help people achieve what they want to achieve their goals? And someone came up with the idea of, well, why don't we give them a bit more detailed information? Yeah, that's great. We said, how about, but to do that, do we have enough time in our half-hour biomech appointments? And then it was decided that no, we don't. How can we do all our assessment, provide our treatment, give that education, which is so crucial and important to someone understanding what their problem is, how can you do all that in 30 minutes? And especially if you're running late. So, one thing that we wanted to make sure of is how about we give you more time to do that? So we went from 30-minute appointments to hour appointments for initial sporting injury assessments, biomechanical assessments. And that gave us more time to provide management plans. I think the big takeaway there was that, if you include your team in some of those changes,
great,
and you sort of work together on developing, everyone had a part to play in developing the actual management plan template that we use. We sat down and sort of went, these are the things that we have to include. And then you can roll out those strategies.
Did that come naturally to you to ask the questions of your team and get their input rather than just, this is how we're going to do it?
Not naturally, no, because for me, my leadership style has changed and evolved over time.
In what way?
Well, very early on, it was very much, not a dictatorship, but it was like, this is my idea, let's do it. And I couldn't often understand, well, it's a great idea. Why don't you guys want to do it? And sometimes it's more, you've got to let people process and think, hang on, let me process this idea. What are the pros? What are the cons? Yeah, I can see that working. Let's implement it. That has definitely changed over the years, and part of that has come down to one of my business partners, Brad. This has been a very natural mentoring and leadership style for him. He's always been very much, let's collaborate. Let's talk about these ideas, and then we'll come back in a few days or a week and see whether we can make, how can we implement that, or how can we make that better for us, or that's definitely something that's evolved. It was never natural to me.
That's awesome, mate. It's really good insight and good learning if anyone's listening. Because oftentimes, like you said, it comes to you Sunday night, you're stewing on these ideas for days and weeks, and then we go, right, team, let's go. Well, they haven't stewed on it for days and weeks like you have. And I think when you bring that approach of asking questions like you did, well, what do we really want to do? Help people. How can we do that? Provide more information. Do we have enough time? No. And so you're asking questions and getting their contributions. Essentially, it's their idea when you ask the right questions. So it's a really good learning. What's been the outcome? Because you mentioned it's that top 10 or 15%, that mastery that you really wanted to nail. What's been the impact of that on your clinic?
Pretty big, to be honest. I feel that the area that we wanted to improve on was obviously making sure that people were not only understanding their problem, but they walked out feeling as though they'd received value for the appointment time they just spent. When you're asking people to spend whatever it is, $100, $150 for a consultation, you don't want someone walking out thinking, geez, that was a waste. They didn't help me at all, or they told me what I already found on Google. So the big thing there was that, we really wanted to make sure people had value. And the consequence of that was we've had a significant jump over the last 18 months in family and friend referrals, like word of mouth referrals. I think that's been huge. That gives you some real confidence knowing that what you're doing is great. If people are sending their family and friends to you because you've been able to help them, I think that's been the biggest win from it all. I think. Yeah,
that's unreal, and it means that your marketing becomes a lot more organic and natural. Although you guys do brilliantly on the social medias and all the digital stuff and the paid and the free, when you've got that core of a referrer base and a client base that loves you and raves about you, it's unreal. Can you wrap some numbers around that, perhaps, whether that's like how many locations, or you mentioned team, what about changes in PVA or consult numbers, those types of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I mean, we've had 4 clinics now for probably about 4 or 5 years. So when I came on board, we had just the 2 and a little satellite clinic where we had a room in a physio clinic a couple of days a week. And since then, we've grown that to 3 standalone clinics, so dedicated podiatry clinics, 3 practitioners on every day of the week. And one of those is now, so the 4th clinic is now out of, renting a room from a physio 4 days a week. So we've been able to grow that, I think, over the last few years to those numbers. Prior to that, we might have had 2 practitioners on most days. So that's definitely helped us grow there. In terms of PVA, look, I'd say it's probably jumped up from around that 4 to 5 visits up to around 6 to 8. So there's been a really good jump there. And again, that's partly because we're actually now seeing that management of that injury. It's really easy to turn around to someone after 2 or 3 visits and say, look, your pain's come down quite a bit, maybe see how you go for the next 2 weeks and let me know. Often those sort of appointments, they disappear. And so one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was working that person through their injury right through. So to the point where, we're constantly giving them a few exercises, helping them through that, working on those exercises in consult if possible, and then progressing them along until they've met their goal. So one of the first things we do, and it's the very first question on the management plan. Sorry, it's the second question. The first question is how did you find out about us?
Right.
The second question is tell us how your injury's affecting you. What's it stopping you from doing? And once people start to open up a little bit and they tell us that they can't chase after their grandkids anymore, they can't walk down to the park with their dog or whatever it is, that becomes their goal. And so the entire management plan focuses back on getting them to achieve that.
Right.
And so
simple.
Very, yeah. I think that's what someone's come to you for a problem. Their problem's not that they got a sore ankle. Their problem is that they can't do what it is they love doing.
Right.
So it's all about that.
That's awesome, mate. So just to clarify, when a clinic PVA has gone from 4 or 5 to 6 to 8, like that's nearly a 50% increase. As you worked on the top 10% of mastery of your business, that's a 50% growth in your business.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's not around over-servicing, right? We're not talking about seeing patients for no reason. It's getting them to that outcome completely, not partially.
Absolutely. And this is something that we work on very closely with our patients. Our aim is to help someone through their problem, not, if we're not providing any more value in that appointment, then you've really got to question whether they need that next appointment. So as I said, it's very much within, it's very grey sometimes. I know a lot of people might look at those numbers and go, geez, that's a lot of consults, but there are a lot of clinics out there that are doing far greater than that and maybe not necessarily providing it's
all about value. And like you say, your patients are raving more than ever now. So it's not a question of whether they love it, obviously. And so I think you're able to provide outcomes and experiences through that. Working on those incremental, marginal, sustainable gains has had a massive impact on your business and probably your life. So if I can close the loop then back to the leadership element, what does your ideal week or current week look like now as a business owner across multiple sites? Are you still consulting? You've got business partners. How do you manage partnership? What does an average week in the life of Dom Sanó look like? Yeah,
look, it's very different to what I originally envisaged as a business owner. So I think early on in business, you sort of sit back and you think, how good would it be if I didn't have to consult at all? And some people really enjoy that. But I think you've got to do something with your time. You can't just sit around and do nothing.
It gets bored and you'll spend a lot of money real quick.
Yeah. And the other thing, I suppose, is that if you're not still within your business, you can't see the things that might go wrong. You can't experience it from a team point of view. So I currently still consult 3 days a week because I like it.
Choice.
Yeah, I love the patient interaction. I love helping people with their injuries. And it gives me a foothold in the 2 clinics that I currently manage and I look after. My business partners, their weeks are similar. A couple of days admin with a couple of days consulting, and we found that setup works best for us. But also it allows me to do what I enjoy, which is actually helping people. So those 2 days that I've got for administrative time, or that I use as administrative time, I spend mentoring some of my team, working on some marketing strategies, whether it be through LinkedIn or Facebook, Instagram, etc. But the key there is, we've just hired our second lot of new grads in 2 years. So we hired 3 last year and 3 this year.
Good.
Yeah, it's great. Like from a growth point of view, it's fantastic. And they're all super keen and eager to learn. And I think you need to feed that thirst. And so you can only do that if you've got the time to do it. So each of us having some admin time allows us to do weekly mentoring with these new grads, allows us to be there for support when they've got new patients, to help them through some of those injuries that they might be having trouble with or that might be tricky. So without doing that, without having that time, I think you can't really, I think, is it Richard Branson that says if you look after your staff, they'll look after your customers. So same thing. If you help enhance and grow your team, they're gonna provide the service that you would provide, or that you want to be known for. So
yeah, it's awesome. What about being a dad and family life? I know we're at a similar stage. How do you juggle business and kids?
Yeah, look, it's hard, and this was one of the other reasons why I wanted to be a business owner, was to buy myself family time. Yep. And so having the flexibility to take my daughter to school a couple of times a week, or pick her up a couple of times a week, is fantastic. Have the time to take into swimming lessons, and they're things that I think you can't always do when you're working 9 to 5. And typically as dads, you sometimes miss out on some of that cool stuff. And sure. But having this opportunity as a business owner, sort of lets me, have a little bit of freedom to do that sort of thing. And that was probably the key thing for me when deciding that I wanted to own a business, was I could, to a degree, pick my own hours and do some of the things that I felt were important, which, as you probably picked up on, family for me is important. And it's the after hours stuff that always gets tricky. On my consulting days, sometimes you get home and it's sort of almost bath and bedtime, but that's my time with the kids. Sit down, read them a story, ask them about their day, that sort of thing. And then weekends is our time. So with a few sports and things that they do, we try to allocate time throughout the weekend that we can do. One thing that I picked up on Indistractable, that book that I read, was the family fun jar. And that's one thing that we've been having a bit of a play with over the last few weeks. So the kids write down, or they're not at a writing level yet, but we'll write down things that they actually want to do. So we ask them, what are 50 things that you actually want to do? Let's list them. Go to the museum, go to the pools, go for a walk, bike ride, whatever it is. All goes into a jar, and then we pick every Sunday morning. We pick one out and we go and do something. So that's our time as a family, and my time with the kids. The challenge is saying no when someone wants to step in time.
Yeah, protecting the diary is always fun. Mate, that's been amazing. Thank you so much for your insights on your journey through the academy and what working on your client experiences has done for your clinic, but also your journey to business ownership, leadership of your team. Yeah, I get really inspired and excited working alongside you and watching what Walk On are doing to help people all throughout the Melbourne region. So thank you for joining us. If people want to say good day, reach out, send you a DM, or check out your clinic, what social medias or websites should they go to, mate?
Personally on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn, walkonpodiatry.com.au. We're on Facebook and Instagram, so you'll be able to find us on all the socials. We try to be as active as we can.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to watch. You can, listeners, you can learn a lot from checking out Walk On and Dom. So we'll link up all those LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and websites over at clinicmastery.com/podcasts for all the show notes. They will be over at clinicmastery.com/podcast. Dominic Sanó, Walk On Podiatry. It's been amazing. Thank you for joining me, mate.
Thanks very much, Jack. Thanks for having me.
And listeners, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate all of your reviews, ratings over at iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to this podcast. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we can't wait to bring you another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast again really soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. To find out more about past episodes or how we can help you, head to www.clinicmastery.com/podcast. And please remember to rate and review us on your podcast player of choice. See you on the next episode.